Welcome to Natural Autonomous Parenting, cultivating fearless curiosity and confidence without coercion. Last meeting, I discussed the importance of putting in the personal work to be a less reactive parent. As I've said, and hopefully is becoming more clear, this type of parenting is not about what to do or say. It really is a philosophical mindset about creating connection with your kids. This can be hard at times because kids do and say things that really irritate us, and it can be so hard to be supportive when we're angry and frustrated. Parents also have the natural instinct to protect our children and to guide them to good decisions. Sometimes we really want kids to just do what we say, but the more we try to communicate the importance of our advice, the more resistance we face. This is because kids do not want to feel bossed around, and it's normal to get defensive, even oppositional to demands. Additionally, children have the same stress response we all do, so when we yell at kids or tower over them, they'll perceive us as a threat. And as I discussed in the last event, when people perceive a threat, their upper brain, the rational area of the brain, is nearly impossible to access. So when we yell, lecture, or threaten our kids, it should be unsurprising that they'll shut down or explode too. Of course, putting in our own work to be less reactive is one thing that will benefit us. And you can go back and listen to the last presentation I gave about doing the personal work to find tips on how to work on your own emotional regulation. But today is about communication, and the ways in which we communicate with our kids can really contribute to this issue. If our kids are shut down, it will interfere with the connection we're trying to build. But we can choose better ways to communicate. So today, I'm going to go over some ways parents often communicate with their kids and a better way to do so. Parents, even when calm and regulated themselves, often choose language that is judgmental or blaming, which will create tension in the relationship and cause kids to react combatively. This is actually not exclusive to how we communicate with kids. Many people speak this way to other adults as well, so it may not always seem so apparent. This is a piece that actually took me a long time to put together, and when I finally realized my inconsistency, it started improving all the relationships in my life. It's common when parents get frustrated to use judgments, threats, dismiss, or blame. These will often leave kids feeling angry, shamed, or defensive. And they end up doing the opposite of what we want and leave us even more frustrated. I'm sure you can relate to this from your own childhood if your parent spoke to you in a way that left you feeling angry and misunderstood. And here are a few ways with examples in which parents speak that are more likely to make a kid feel shame or get defensive. Dismissing your kid. Common phrases may be, "You don't really mean that. It's your sister. You love her." Or, "You're not really hurt. Stop crying." This is dismissive of their experience. Technically, I might even go so far as to say it's gaslighting because you're getting the kid to question their reality, and you're sending the message that you know more about their experiences than they do. Another common thing adults do is blame their kids. "You made the table all dirty with your sticky hands." Or, "Maybe if you let them play with your toys, they would let you use theirs." This is blaming and far more likely to make the kid want to lie or try to shift blame elsewhere. It can also make them feel less important, such as thinking you value the table more than you do them. Or it can make a kid more defiant or want to give up, where the kid might think, "I can never do good enough, I'll just stop trying." Adults also often make demands. This might sound like, "Pick up your toys right now." And I think we can all relate to how we feel when someone makes a demand of us. One reaction may be defiance. "You can't make me do anything." Or maybe strong feelings like, "Ugh, I hate my mom, she's so bossy." Or the kid may be inclined to feel shame or give up and think, "Well, I'm just not good enough." When parents do this, it seems we think our kids are not deserving of the same consideration and respect we give most other people, because we usually don't make these types of demands on other adults. Another thing parents do is speaking in a way that is threatening. So, "If you don't put on your coat, you're going to freeze out there." Or, "Climb down right now, you're going to fall and break a bone." These threats are equally problematic. Threats can leave the kid feeling really scared or overwhelmed, or possibly even more curious and secretive. The kid might think, I'll climb this when my mom's not watching. Because a simple threat will not impart the wisdom of a lifetime of making mistakes. Kids need to know you genuinely have their backs, because very often the consequences of ignoring threats like these can be as minuscule as being totally fine on a chilly day without a jacket to ending up in the ER with a broken bone. Kids need to trust that we're giving them sound advice, which takes time and compassion, not to feel coerced into obeying. Parents also frequently offer solutions. This might sound like, here, take this truck, it's not broken. Or, have you tried asking Allie if you can borrow her bike? Here we're offering solutions which can get in the way of your kids solving their own problems. It's subtle, but if we do this all the time, then kids will feel that they need you to solve all their problems for them. Another all too common way parents speak is making a judgment about your kid or their behavior. This can sound like, you always forget your shoes, or she's so shy, or why are you so messy? Kids are very sensitive to these judgments because they can internalize them and end up identifying with the judgment. A kid might think, I am messy, so that's why I won't clean my room. And this can happen with any judgment, such as bad, lazy, selfish, but it can even turn into a self-perpetuating internalization with judgments we associate with being positive, such as happy or tidy or hardworking. And likewise, when kids feel that they cannot live up to these standards, they might feel a deep sense of shame or embarrassment. And these feelings can live long past childhood and into adulthood. This can definitely impact self-esteem, and it's very common for these judgments to slip into our conversations. These ways of communicating are disconnecting, and they drive a wedge in the parent-child relationship. Additionally to the judgmental ways parents speak to their kids, they also frequently insert themselves into their children's issues, getting all worked up along the way. This can lead us to offering unwanted advice or trying to solve problems our own way, when it was not our problem to begin with. We may even create more problems, but either way, we're interfering with our children's opportunity to solve their own issues. So it's worth working at identifying who really has the problem in the first place. For example, imagine your kid just dumped out all of their toys on the ground, and now they're all across the room. Whose problem do you think this is? Sure, your kid dropped all the toys all over the ground, but this is actually you who wants a clean house, not your kid. It's actually your problem. And we're putting the expectation and need for a clean space onto our kid without considering their preference or even their own needs. Their needs could be something like access to their toys for creativity and fun, or not wanting to clean because they're needing rest and relaxation. Parents often don't consider that there are conflicting needs, and they feel angry that their own needs aren't being met. But we'll get into all that a little bit later, because identifying the person who's having the need is an important detail. Let's say your kid's at the playground and there's another kid trying to keep your kid off some equipment. Your kids may be yelling, and things seem tense. This is your kid's problem. Now, the key here is to know that you do not need to solve all of your kids' problems. And being able to differentiate who is having the problem can help you keep from getting emotionally invested in problems that are not yours. Here's a few examples of various issues and whose problem it really is. Let's say your kid's throwing food off their plate. This is your problem. You want the clean space or maybe not to waste food. Let's say the kids are fighting over a toy. This is the kid's problem. What if a teacher at school writes you a note saying that your kid is disrupting the class and won't sit during circle time? This is the teacher's problem. Differentiating who is having a problem can really help us take a step back so we don't overwhelm ourselves. And I will say this again because it really is extraordinarily life-changing. You do not need to solve all of your kids' problems, or other people's problems for that matter. Now, one of the most powerful tools in helping our kids with their problems is learning how to effectively listen to our kids. I find it quite ironic that parents say, "My kids don't listen to me," or angrily tell their kid, "Hey, you're not listening to me," when we so often disregard our kids when they're telling us something. After all, modeling is one of the most important aspects of autonomous parenting. So if you want your kids to listen to you, then the most influential thing you can do is to listen to them. Think about a time when you told your partner or a friend about a problem you were having. What happened and how did it make you feel? There's quite a few different strategies people use when a friend or loved one is describing an issue they're having, and a lot of them can leave us feeling more upset. If someone tries to offer advice, it's often unhelpful and leaves us feeling even more angry or confused. If they ask too many questions or tell us we're being overreactive, we get defensive. And even more irritating is when they seem distracted or totally disregarding of our issue. But when somebody gives you a chance to talk everything through with their full attention and empathy, we more quickly to find resolution and move on from our troubles. This is no different for children. If we interrogate, ignore, or only offer solutions, our kids will feel more frustrated. But if we stop what we're doing and give them our full attention, acknowledgement, and empathy, our kid will be more likely to find resolution. So, when children come to you with an issue, show your child you're really listening to them. You can do this by setting down your phone, turning off the TV, or removing any other distraction so they know you're really hearing them. And while they're speaking, it could be helpful to name their emotions and use reflective listening to help comfort or clarify. Your kid will correct you if you're off base with how they're feeling or if you misunderstand some detail. Here's a little sample of what this might sound like. Your kid says, "I hate Tim. He just broke my shovel." And you respond, "Oh no." "Yeah, Tim is the worst." You sound angry, your shovel's broken. "Yeah, it was a gift from Aunt Becky, and I really miss her." "That shovel reminded you of Aunt Becky." "Yeah, I wish we could see her more often. Can we call her this afternoon?" "Sure." Now, it might be tempting to solve this issue by reminding the kid that they have other shovels, or tell them it's only a shovel, or maybe even blame them in some way. "I told you to leave your things in the car, but now they're broken." None of those responses would have gotten to the real root of the problem, nor allowed the kid to work through their feelings in their own way. When we give our support without judgment or blame, even if they're still upset, we're building trust and connection instead of feeding into more negative feelings. This may not seem totally natural at first, but when we show our kids with our actions and our words that we're really listening, we help build more cooperation and understanding in the relationship. Additionally, when we support our kids by really listening to them and withhold the judgments, our kids will be more supportive of our needs. People in general are less willing to help another person who's made them feel lousy, so it shouldn't be a great surprise that our kids drag their feet with resentment when they feel criticized. Now, if we're the ones that are having the problem, it can be tricky communicating this to our kids, particularly without passing criticism in some way. Likewise, if we're trying to communicate some important value, like hurting another person's not okay. So I've already pointed out the power of identifying who's really having a problem. And when we're facing some unmet need, parents often throw the responsibility onto the kid, adding all sorts of judgments and threats that cause the kids to become defensive. And this will only get in the way of us getting our needs met. Children actually want to be helpful and contribute meaningfully to others, but nobody wants to feel coerced or blamed into helping. So, if you're looking for cooperation, there's a few helpful rules you can follow to communicate more respectfully to your kid. One is to shift to I messages. 2 is describe the situation or behavior without judgment. 3 is describe the specific effect it has, such as costs you time or money, prevents you from doing something you need to do, or it upsets your senses in some way. And then 4, say how it makes you feel. Here are some examples of statements that we can shift using these strategies to change our language from shaming to neutral. So instead of, "You left this huge mess on the table," you can say, "When I see all the art supplies left on the table, I feel frustrated because it takes so much more time for me to get dinner out." And instead of, "Ugh, you broke the cup, I can never trust you with delicate things," you can instead say, "Oh no, the glass is broken. I feel so disappointed when our nice things break." And then, of course, a common demand, "Stop screaming," can be less blamefully said as, "When I hear you yell, I feel annoyed because it hurts my ears." Here are a few more examples of judgments that are subtle and very commonly spoken to children, and a less critical way to communicate them. So, hitting is bad. You can say instead, "It hurts when you hit my body." Or the even more subtle, "It's so nice of you to share," can be less judgmentally translated to, "Jenny looks so happy you let her play with your doll." And to be fair, these last couple statements are not actually true. There may be instances where hitting is justified, and it does not make you a bad person. And as an adult, sharing is simply not obligatory the way adults enforce it for kids. Most of us own things that we won't lend out, and this does not make us bad people. And while I do not recommend explaining the nuances of the non-aggression principle to your kid, we can eliminate reinforcing this type of black and white language. Of course, being able to communicate this way is a challenge. It takes practice, and it does get easier with time. And if you've been speaking to your kids with judgment and blame, it may take even longer for your kids to stop hearing blame and judgment, even when you choose more neutral language. Of course, this also means you really need to make sure your intention is not to blame or judge. If you're using this way to speak to your child, but your underlying motivation is to make them feel guilty or wrong in some way, your kid will see that, and they will likely put up resistance. Much like all of this parenting style, our intent needs to match our words and our actions. And this is the part that can get so tricky, because way too often we do get attached to a specific outcome. I know I certainly do. And the more we realize that this is not our kids' responsibility to get our needs met, the less we come to expect a specific result from them. And this brings me to the next step, which is making a request of your kid. The difficult part is that it always remains a possibility that your kid may say no to your request. So we need to be prepared to accept their answer. So I'll go through these examples from the prior slide and add a request and show how to respond to a refusal or a no. So the first one, when I see all the art supplies left on the table, I feel frustrated because it takes so much more time for me to get dinner out. Would you please put the art supplies back in the closet? And your kid replies, no. You can say, I can see you're busy reading now, and I'm sure you've had a long day. I'll take care of it today. Realize again, you're actually the one needing a clean table. Sure, your kid made it all messy, but consider if we extend some compassion and generosity with our time, our kids will in turn be far more likely to help us in the future. Also realize that what we truly have power over. We cannot make them clean up. So if you fear it will turn into a power struggle that might escalate to threats, you might consider avoiding this route. And as your kids experience your willingness to help them, they'll eventually trust your support enough to help you. And ultimately, Your kids need to trust that you care about their needs and that you're willing to contribute to meeting their needs, for them to want to contribute to yours. Here's another example. Oh no, the glass is broken. I feel so disappointed when our nice things break. Would you mind grabbing the broom so I can sweep this up and nobody gets cut? And your kid, no. Okay, I'll grab it. I trust you'll help me next time. And last, when I hear you yell, I feel annoyed because it hurts my ears. Could you please use a quieter voice when you're right next to me? And if your kid keeps screaming, you can say, oh, I'm going to help you go outside so you can scream as loud as you want out there. And I just want to remind everyone, this is not about perfection. It's just about having an awareness. And this is a big step forward. So hopefully you can see more clearly how the words we choose and how we use them can either create more tension or foster cooperation in the relationship. And if you're planning to make some changes in the way you speak, please be aware it can take quite a bit of time for this to feel natural. It will also take time to build trust if you've been in the habit of using threats to get your kids to do things, or for your kids to trust that you're not really trying to make them feel bad or force them into something. You will need time, consistency, and patience to make this shift. Another note is please be aware that very young children are developmentally egotistical. They won't necessarily want to cooperate despite any language you choose. This is totally normal. And the more you model this way of speaking and show your willingness to help and support them, they will eventually trust that you care about their needs, and they will gladly help you as they get older. So if you have very young children, or you have older kids and want to make the shift, don't expect immediate, reliable cooperation. Removing judgments, blames, and demands is an approach for the long term, and it sets the stage for a trusting, collaborative relationship where everyone's needs matter. So in closing, I'm actually really curious if any of you ever felt judged or ignored when you were a kid, when you tried to talk to your parents. Let me know in the comments.